Good morning, Keith Tebow from FRCmedia. Thank you for joining us today. There's been a lot of discussion, for quite some time, but it's really been amplified over the past couple of years over the term period poverty. And that is women in our region not getting the adequate feminine products that they need. And there's been issues in our schools over this. Well, the city of Fall River is about to receive some money that will help in this effort. And joining me to talk about period poverty and how it impacts Fall River and the grant the city is receiving is Wendy Garf-Lipp. She is the executive director of United Neighbors of Fall River, who's going to be spearheading this project. Wendy, thank you for joining me. How are you?
Morning. I'm delighted to be here and to talk about period poverty.
Sorry, you were muted for just a second, but we did hear, hear your last few words there. So, Wendy, let me just start for people who do not know what the issue of period poverty is. What is it in general, and how a city like Fall River is impacted maybe more than other communities on this issue?
Great. Well, first off, I want you to know that this is a worldwide issue.
Yeah.
It impacts certainly people in poverty more than anyone else, but it impacts women and people that menstruate across the board. So let's start out with some startling facts about women in our world, in our community. 1 in 10 girls have found themselves unable to afford a menstrual product. 1 in 7 girls have asked to borrow a sanitary product from a friend, and more than 1 in 12 girls have had to improvise a sanitary product. Improvise means instead of a pad or a Tampax, it means that they use a sock or newspaper and a washcloth, or they reuse a pad that had already been used, dried, and was given to be used again. I know this is not happy things to talk about, but I think it's important for people to really understand what are the foundational elements that define period poverty. Some young women have to resort to using the few tampons that they can afford for prolonged periods of time, risking toxic shock syndrome, cervical cancer, and other dangerous infections. The stigma surrounding periods has been shown to directly affect a girl's potential to succeed. If a girl misses school every time she has her period, she's 145 days behind her fellow male students. Now, 35 states in the US have a tax on menstrual products because they're considered non-essential. But products like Rogaine to grow your hair and Viagra, those are not taxed. They are considered essential. Lack of affordability and information have led many young women to use only 1 tampon per day or 1 pad for multiple days. When proper products are not available or affordable, they resort to alternatives, socks, dish rags, newspapers, etc. Now, for those experiencing poverty, $7 to $15 a month per female in a household is pretty expensive when you have to figure out how you're going to put food on the table. So all of these issues contribute to it. Then there's the stigma. Pretend I'm a 9th grade girl at Durfee High, and all of a sudden I realize I need a menstrual product. I raise my hand in history and I say, Mr. Tebow, can I go to the nurse's office? Why do you want to go to the nurse's office? I need to go to the nurse. Why do you want to go to the nurse? I need to go to the nurse. Do I say I have my period? Finally, Mr. Tebow lets me go to the nurse. I get to the nurse's office. There's lots of kids in the nurse's office. They're all sitting, waiting to be seen. The nurse says, "Dear, what can I do for you?" Do I say, I need a menstrual pad in front of everyone? The whole idea of having to ask permission for something that should be provided is very upsetting and certainly stigmatizing.
Yeah. And, you talk about not only the issues that you brought up, but, it really becomes more than the stigma is obviously a huge deal, but it's also the health issues around it. You talk about how, people, women who can't afford the menstrual products are doing these other avenues to help themselves. And that comes out to be a health issue as well, right?
It's a health issue, and it's also time out of work, time out of school. If I have to leave my class, go to the nurse's office, get a product, then go back to my class, I've missed half my math class. If I have to stay home because I'm afraid I'm going to have leakage, I'm not going to show up for work. I don't get paid for that day. So, it impacts across the board on everything.
Yeah. Let's talk about the grant the city has received $150,000 from the Massachusetts organization, national Massachusetts chapter of the National Organization for Women, as providing
No,
$150,000
no,
to
let me
provide
correct
a
you. Let me correct you. We are in
yeah,
United Neighbors, the
yep,
Massachusetts National Organization of Women applied together for the Community Empowerment and Reinvestment Program grant through the state of
okay,
Massachusetts. So that's where the money is coming from. Okay, but
correct.
I
So
want to before we get to the grant, I just want
sure,
to take a step back and tell you what happened prior to the grant. So
great,
United Neighbors had the Coalition Against Period Poverty since prior to the pandemic, and we've been working very hard to get free access for products in all bathrooms where women who menstruate and people who menstruate frequent. So that would be gender neutral bathrooms as well as women's bathrooms. And we've been going back and forth with the schools and with organizations. And we were delighted that in August, we spoke to Superintendent Andrew Rubello at Diamond, and they made the big decision that starting this past September, they were going to be able to provide for the girls in their school and women and people who menstruate in their school access to products in all appropriate bathrooms. So that was our first big win. Then we began to talk with the Fall River Public School. There have been a lot of changes in the public school. And recently we got a pledge from Maria Ponce that they would be erecting these machines in all necessary bathrooms in the high schools and the middle schools. And then we'd be looking also to see what would happen in the elementary school. And I say the elementary school because I bet a lot of listeners don't realize that the average age of menses these days is 9 years old. That's when girls average start to menstruate. So they're not in junior high yet or in middle school yet. They're still in elementary school. So that was the pledge we got from the school department before we even got this grant. So that was so exciting that Fall River made these decisions that we're going to move forward in equity for people who menstruate. Then we applied with the National Organization of Women, and we're to this Community Empowerment Reinvestment Program, and we're going to be receiving a $150,000 state grant to launch a menstrual product distribution program in Fall River. And this will help provide, it will offset the cost that the school has already committed to for menstrual products in the bathrooms at all middle and high schools. We also wrote in the shelters and some congregate housing and youth serving organization like Greater Fall River Recreation, the Boys and Girls Club, and the YMCA, and a few other smaller entities as well. The program, this partnership, now includes the Fall River Mayor's Office, who supported us through the process, and the Coalition Against Period Poverty, Mass Now, and United Neighbors. We've been working on this for about 6 months to get this to happen. And we also will be providing menstrual health workshop programs to hire and train local educators to facilitate workshops in both schools and community centers. And those workshops will be directed, and they'll be train the trainer workshops, and they'll be done by an amazing organization that's called Love Your Menses. So by providing access to menstrual programs to all these people in public schools, unhoused, low income, in health centers, in rec centers, we're bringing about economic equality in menstrual health and certainly health equality across the board. And we're very excited for this opportunity to interrupt the cycles of shame and stigma which surrounds menstruation, and to meet the needs of menstruators that are living in poverty. We're not the only community that's been doing this, but we're certainly following the lead of Cambridge and Somerville Public Schools, Brookline Public Schools, Boston Public Schools, and right to our border, Rhode Island now is doing this as well. There are about 70 different agencies that are working for the IAM bill, which is increased access to menstrual products, which would require all Massachusetts public schools, prisons, and shelters to provide free, easily accessible menstrual products. The bill also contains language to ensure that products are truly accessible without stigmatizing the individuals seeking them. So it's moving to the Senate Ways and Means, and we hope to have an answer about that now.
yeah. So definitely a lot going on, but I actually want to get back. You answered a lot of my questions, Wendy. So that's great in terms of the what the grant provides and how it will impact Fall River. But you mentioned the part about stigma, and you mentioned that there's going to be training for trainers that is going to help with the implementation, providing access to the menstrual products. How do we go about educating people about overcoming the stigma and getting
Well,
by that? Is there anything that can be done with that in that avenue?
certainly, there's always something that can be done to help people deal with stigma. In our world, in the social justice world, in the health world, we deal with stigma in a variety of different ways. But I want to point out something interesting, Keith. You began this broadcast by talking about access to feminine hygiene products. You
Yeah.
didn't, and you have not yet used the word menstruation or menstrual products. So that's one of the
Mhm.
first places we're starting with. We use
Yep.
the word tampon, and we use the word pad, and we use the word menses, and we use the word menstruation, because this is part and parcel of health of women across the board. So to stigmatize these words contribute to the whole process as well. We're very, very concerned that making access as easy for people who are menstruating as access to soap and toilet paper in the bathroom. That is the comparable thing. When you go into the bathroom, you don't have to worry if you have to go to the guidance counselor first to get a roll of toilet paper, or if you have to go to your teacher and ask for permission to use sanitizer. Those things are readily available for people in our schools and our institutions, and we think that menstrual products should be that way as well. In fact, we have a new program through the Coalition Against Period Poverty called the Period Poverty Pledge. We're asking organizations in Fall River to stand against period poverty and to create effective change in our community. And this will help break down the stigma, because we're asking that to be part of the solution, you pledge in your organization, in employee bathrooms and in client bathrooms, to have free product that will be easily available. We'll also have some signage and explanation about it, to put up signs about hosting drives for menstruation products in your organization, to provide for those struggling to afford these products. And we'll provide an editable flyer for that as well, and to share relevant parish period poverty information on your organization's website and on social media pages. And if organizations and businesses and offices sign on to the pledge, we're going to start them off with a bag full of Tampax and pads for them to be able to distribute, and signage and information. So stigma changes when people begin talking about things. So here's our first step to do this.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you for setting me straight, because it is difficult for people, right? To make
Absolutely.
the make that
I'll
change,
tell
and
you
I
this.
and I
I've been
appreciate it.
I've been in United Neighbors for 13 years. One of the
Yeah.
first things that we did, and we have clients that come in and we do groups in our office and things. One of the first things we did is we got a big fishbowl and we filled it up with condoms, which we offered for free. But until I became aware of period poverty 3 years ago, we didn't
Mhm.
have a bowl of Tampax. We didn't have pads. Even as a very, very politically aware woman, it was not something that was in our radar. So now we're trying to put it out there and help people understand that the way we talk about things and the way we look about things affect the way our community does things.
Yeah.
We couldn't be prouder of Fall River for taking the steps that they're taking.
Yeah, absolutely. Wendy Garf-Lipp, Executive Director of United Neighbors of Fall River. Thank you for your time as always. I'm sure we'll catch up on other items very soon. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Keith. It was a pleasure being here. Let's keep
Uh,
this conversation flowing.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us here in FRC Media. I'm Keith Tebow. Have a great day.